So far we've seen two very significant bugs, both related to untested code. So we're going to slow down and stop being these kind of crazy cowboy coder we've been so far in the last few lectures and start being real engineers again and writing proper tests. What we're going to do is write a test for a function that's going to see if both of these inputs are valid, and if they are, we're going to return true, otherwise we're going to return false. So we'd like to write a function to validate the entire form, as opposed to validate each input individually. Let's head back to our terminal and do that. The first thing I'm going to do is run my tests in watch mode, just to get that nice quick feedback loop. So I'm going to run yarn test and put it in watch mode. The next thing we're going to do is write a test, as I said, so let's go ahead and head back to our test file. And this is going to be a function which validates the entire form, so I'm going to call it isFormValid. And this is going to take a validated form and just check if all the inputs are valid. So let's go ahead and write the happy case, which is where everything is valid. So I'm going to say it is valid. It's a pretty simple description, but I think it's going to suffice for now. I'm going to go ahead and create my actual one here and say isFormValid, and we're going to pass in a validated form as the argument. So I'm going to say validated form. Let's go ahead and create that variable now, and that is going to be a validated form, which is going to have a name, which has a valid status of true, and it's going to have exactly the same thing for weight. So this is a valid form, and because this is a valid form, we're going to say expect actual to be true. Let's go ahead and save this. Of course, this is going to fail because this method doesn't even exist, which is why I'm going to make it exist right now. It's going to be called isFormValid. Let's go ahead now and implement that one. I'm going to head back to my implementation file and export a new function. So export function isFormValid. It's going to take a form, and then we're just going to check if each of those is valid. Again, we could do some kind of crazy code here where we use object.keys and dynamically iterate over all the keys, but I am going to keep this as simple as possible for now. So what I'm going to do is just return the valid status of each input. So I'm going to say form.name.valid and form.weight.valid. And this is going to tell us if all of those are valid. That should be valid. Let's save it off and see what happens. With a bit of luck, this is going to pass, and everything is passing. Let's go ahead and write one more test just to make sure the correct validation is working for the case where some of the inputs are invalid. So I'm going to copy this one and just say is not valid. Let's go ahead and update these to make them both false. And now this should be false. In fact, let's just make one of them false, because any one of these being false means the whole form should not be valid and the user cannot submit it. And if we save this one off, it is going to pass as well. So I'm very confident this function is now working correctly. And in the next lecture, we're going to implement this in the UI and bind this to a submit button.